Hello, I'm Joanne Bester, and welcome back to our third episode in our Regen series. Today we'll continue the discussion with Roland, where he's going to tell us about the 4 ecosystem processes, which are really the foundations of what we have to manage when we're looking at regenerative farming. Hello Roland. So today we'll discuss the 4 ecosystem processes, which is really the only thing that we can manage in an ecosystem.
Thanks Joanne, yes, and welcome back. So we spoke about holism and the complexity of nature and everything's interconnected. Now what we're trying to do is say, okay, we can't own it, we can't control it, we can only manage it. So let's look at within our ecosystem, what are the things that we can definitely manage? And we refer to these as the 4 ecosystem processes, which are the foundation blocks of our ecosystem effectively. And they are not in isolation, they always will influence each other, but you've got to view these 4 ecosystem processes as 4 windows on the same room. So you can't only manage water cycle, you can't only manage mineral cycle, you can't only manage any of these. So they are named as water cycle, mineral cycle, energy flow, and community dynamics. So let me quickly touch on them. The water cycle is quite obvious. It's how we get our rainfall and what we do with it. Remember, we get our rainfall and we get our sunlight for free. How we come out the other end determines whether or not we add costs to that. So our rain is free and we just got to make sure we utilize it. So we look around the world and we see average rainfall, average rainfall, average rainfall. That's how much rain fell. What we need to know is how much rain did we keep. It's not how much rain you get, it's how much rain you keep. So I have a little mantra which is saying stop the drop. So part of our ecosystem process management is stopping that raindrop at source, where it falls. If you invest that raindrop into the soil, it's going nowhere. In South Africa, the stats are that only about 13% of our rainfall is effective. In other words, the rest of it is running away, eroding, taking soil with it, or it's evaporating back into the sky, of no use to us. So if we could think about this practically and say, okay, well, if we just improve our effectiveness of our rainfall, we're actually moving ourselves into a whole new rainfall bracket. So here at Excelsior, we are 350 millimeter rainfall area. If we can improve our rainfall effectiveness just by 50%, we're practically moving ourselves into 500 more rainfall. Now just think about that, because one of the biggest problems that us farmers have is bleating about droughts and lack of rainfall. Just take the rain you get and make it work. Don't let it go. So water cycle is the one thing we can manage. Mineral cycle is the next thing we can manage. And mineral cycle really refers to how the minerals in the ecosystem function. From the root zone, the root, the leaf drop, plants lying on the ground, microbes accessing that. We are all a very large percentage of carbon, and how the carbon cycle functions within our ecosystem is something that's directly under our control. So mineral cycle is something which when we go out into land, you have a look at it, one of the first things you see is the health of the mineral cycle. So how much dead material is lying on the soil? That dead material, is it being processed by the soil microbes, or is it just oxidizing and lying on top of the soil? Digging into the roots, seeing the health of the roots, seeing the microbes, the fungus, we can't see microbes, but the presence of funguses, earthworms, various other things. Those things will directly influence the health of the mineral cycle. The third key process is energy cycle or energy flow. So every morning, in South Africa it's pretty topical. We've got a pretty well managed power source which comes up in the east every morning, and that is the only source of energy for the planet, for life. And the only way we can harness that energy is through a growing leaf. So the photosynthetic process is the only mechanism to trap energy and to feed energy for life on the planet. Everything we produce comes from nature, everything we consume comes from nature. So that is all dependent on energy. So it stands to reason then, the better our energy cycle is working, the more efficiently we trapping solar energy, the better we're going to be. So it stands to reason as well then, if we have more leaves per growing plant, more growing plants per square meter for more months of the year, we're going to be harnessing more solar energy, which makes our ecosystem more healthy. So if we can think about this and saying, okay, let's tie it back to water cycle and mineral cycle, if those two are functioning well, it means we're going to have better plant health, more leaf area, more sunlight energy coming in, more production for our animals, more life, more food for the subsoil life, more capacity to hold water. Everything just gets better. The fourth eco process is what we call community dynamics. Now, in the first episode, we spoke about holism and how everything is interconnected. And when we deal with community dynamics, we're dealing not only with plants or with animals or biodiversity or any of these things, we're dealing with the full complexity of which humans are a part. We've got to remember humans are a fundamental part of the ecosystem, and you can't take humans out and expect things to go happily on their own. There's this theory in some of the rewilding around the world where they're saying, well, humans don't belong here, take them out. Well, then who's going to pay for that, or who's going to manage it? Humans have to be involved. So we have to understand that this enormous complexity, we're part of that, and when we go into our management and we look at our tools, that the things we're going to manage in nature, we've got to think of predict the consequences that we have on our ecosystem. I like using the example of pangolin. Millions and millions of dollars are spent on saving the pangolin, but very little is spent on saving the habitat of the pangolin. So let's manage that, and the pangolin will come back. So those are the 4 ecosystem processes which we need to manage.
So now that we have a better understanding of the 4 ecosystem processes that we have to manage, we can make better conclusions about our regenerative farming. The next episode, we'll be looking at the tools of management to explore exactly what we have at our disposal to be able to manage these systems.